So there has been this conversation about whether or not a woman should run for president, especially on the Democratic ticket, right? And so far, everybody has been saying, and we all heard this, it needs to be a white male. That's who it needs to be, a white straight male, because they're excluding Pete Buttigieg, which I don't really, we can talk about that another time, but I don't really care for him too much. But it's this thing like a woman cannot win. And I kind of did a video about this, but then I didn't end up posting it because I didn't get the full rough draft of what I was saying. But the thing is that I don't want to say that a woman cannot be president or a woman will not win, because it can be done. It just has to be the right one. And timing is everything. Now, I'm going to go ahead and play this clip from Mika where she actually talks about this. But then I'm going to play from Kamala Harris, because did she just clap back at Michelle Obama when she said, y'all not ready for a woman president? Let's get into it, y'all. But hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and play the clip, and then I'll play the Kamala Harris clip second.
To put a woman on the top of the ticket. Fair or
But
unfair?
I think, it's so interesting. Thank you, Ashley Parker. I think the circumstances were the problem. I'm not going to go into the circumstances surrounding Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, but I did not think that was a good matchup for the Democrats to put out there. I was concerned about it the minute they were laughing on Saturday Night Live, Hillary Clinton and her actress counterpart. I thought to myself, this is not going to go well for a number of reasons that are just not worth bringing up at this point. But Kamala Harris, her circumstances were horrendous. 107 days to try and pull this off. Let me tell you what she did do for women in that short amount of time was show that she could actually operate at her very best of her life under the microscope, whether it's the Brett Baier interview where everything that was put in her direction was unfair and quite frankly put her on her heel.
And they even played the incorrect clip during that interview too. And then they were like, oh, well, that's besides the point. Yeah, you were playing the wrong clip trying to glaze Trump and trying to make Kamala look bad, but y'all played the wrong clip.
On so many levels, and she managed through beautifully her debate with Donald Trump. Crushed him. She crushed, let me say it again, unlike anybody else who ever debated Donald Trump, Kamala Harris crushed him. She humiliated him. She laid it all out as to what a disgrace, that was the word she used, he was as a candidate and as a former president. And she was incredible. And what she did in that short period of time was also really helpful to women, because even though she didn't bring it over the line, she couldn't win. She again showed what a candidate can do. She didn't have the time. It might not have been the right circumstances, but we're not looking for a male. We're looking for a candidate with the correct circumstances, background, and abilities.
Well, Ashley's right too, and obviously I agree with you, Mika. I mean, I started writing the piece before Michelle Obama made those comments, and I was writing the piece because everywhere I go, I hear Democrats telling me, it's too risky to nominate a woman again, and obviously America's not ready. We can't do that. I mean, it's just an insane conclusion to draw. And what we saw, actually, the other point I try to make in the piece, aside from the fact that that's just so destructive and ridiculous and sexist and wrong, the other point I make is that actually I think part of what we're seeing from this last election, Americans are actually in some ways more drawn to women now. I mean, there's data that shows sort of this, if people want to backlash the antidote to Trump, in many cases that is women, that's women of color. And I think voters are really seeing that and thinking about it.
Yeah. Come on.
And one of the things that I want to point out is that, of course, there's racism, sexism, all that stuff, right? But I think more or less now what people want is someone that they feel will fight for them. Somebody who has interest in lowering healthcare prices, lowering just costs in general. Affordability is like the new word, right? It never really was a new word. We all knew that, nothing here is affordable as far as housing, food, gas, whatever, But someone who really speaks to the people and somebody who really wants to see change, We just don't want that little, okay, somebody to make us feel good. Yeah, that feels great. But somebody who's going to come in and totally break down the system and be like, you know, this ain't working for us. This is not work for us. We need to change this, get rid of this, and come in there. Now, I think one of the things that Trump does well is that he says that thing, but he really has the same systems in place that oppresses us. Like it's nothing different. He'll tell us that, but he's still working within the swamp. You know, he always says drain the swamp. He still is the swamp. Because again, just like Mika said, when you look at that debate performance, Kamala Harris slaughtered him without a question, without a doubt, slaughtered him. So when we look at just their policies, right? Because again, they say, oh, well, we didn't know her policies. No, you just didn't care. When she said about giving loans to, or a tax credit to business owners, a tax credit for buying a home, talked about healthcare, you know, in-home healthcare, Medicare paying for in-home healthcare. She talked about that, like things that will actually help the people versus Trump, who said tariffs is going to pay for everything. And I'm going to deport the illegals, and then I'm going to get all the trans out the bathrooms. That's what he ran on. But it was really nothing to help the everyday person. Oh, and of course, he promised the rich the tax cuts, which people think the trickle-down economics from Reagan. A study has been done in the last 20 years, and it's proven that trickle-down economics does not work. Not at all. But again, let me shut up and let's go to the Kamala Harris clip right here. One moment while I pull this up. And remember, Michelle Obama, in the original conversation was about Michelle Obama saying, like, people aren't ready for a woman president. She said, you ain't going to fool me or trick me into thinking that you guys are going to vote for me, basically. And Kamala Harris had something to say about that. Now, she said that she necessarily wasn't addressing Michelle Obama. Here we go.
She run. And she said, don't ask me that. You all are lying. You haven't gone out and voted for a woman. This country is not ready for a woman president. I had this conversation with you when you were on The View a couple of months ago, because I keep hearing that, and I keep hearing it from women.
I don't keep hearing it. I don't keep hearing it. And so I think that, like, let's not over-index on that. Because if I'm walking through an airport, if I'm talking to people here, I don't hear that. And I think that people like to, in these pundits kind of round tables, suggest that there are a lot of people feeling that way. Let me be very clear.
Michelle said it.
I'm not speaking to what Michelle said. I'm speaking to the point. And the point is this. It was an unprecedented election, as we have discussed, president pulling out, vice president running, former president. Here's the other thing that is unprecedented about it in the 21st century. It was the closest presidential election in the 21st century. The closest. So I'm not hearing that America is not ready. I'm not hearing that, and that's not the message we should be sending to the American people, to our young people, regardless of their gender. I'm not hearing that, and I'm not speaking about what any particular person has said. I'm not reacting to anyone else's comment. I am telling you my lived experience.
So there you have it from Kamala Harris, straight from her mouth. Now, I will say this. I always thought about because after the election, I was like, oh yeah, no more women. We just run another white man so then we can go ahead and win. But I thought about something. It sets a precedence to, and you know, I don't have any kids, but I do have nieces. And I would hate for let me be more specific, my Black nieces to hear that, oh, there'll never be a Black woman or a woman of color or just a woman in general to ever become president, or they shouldn't run. We need to go with the safe option. And it's all like, being safe is kind of like what got us in this mess right now. Like, we need to just say, we just need a good candidate. We need a great candidate, not a good one, a great candidate. We need a candidate, not a woman, a man, or whatever. It can be anybody. As long as we're looking at what they can do for us, that's what really matters. And so again, back to my nieces, I would hate for them to hear that, oh, it will never be a woman. Because when you think about it, growing up, I'm a millennial, for those of you who don't know, we always heard there'll never be a black president. And probably the baby boomers going back, they probably heard the same thing about there'll never be a black president, right? So fast forward to now, we had Barack Obama in 2008. And the first time I could vote was for Barack Obama. That was historic. I voted for him twice. Then 2016, I voted for Hillary Clinton. She would have been the first woman. Now, she was the first woman to be the Democratic nominee, but she did not win. Then in 2020, I voted for Joe Biden. Now, he is Caucasian, but he's the oldest president. So shout out to all our seniors out there. We love you. You know how to throw in a little joke and a little shade at the same time. And then in 2024, I voted for Kamala Harris. So every vote that I have, put in every ballot that I have turned in has been for something historic. Even though Joe Biden, I wouldn't say that really was historic, but in the context of like he was older and we was going through the pandemic and stuff like that, it was historic enough, damn it. But anyway, and I just feel like let's not get into the place where we're looking, and this is we don't care about identity politics. That's not what I'm getting to. But let's just find the best candidate that's going to work for us. I don't care who they are, what religion, what race, what gender, sexuality, I don't care. Let's just get the best candidate. And I think us fighting on or us not even fighting, but more or less saying, okay, we only have a short list of 3 people, instead of us finding the best of the best. Because the best of the best can be anybody. So are we going to say a straight white male is the only person that can run the country? Are we going to say that? And I think in Kamala Harris's case, we can say oh, she ran a bad campaign. But in short, now that I think about it, could anybody win in 107 days? And a lot of people are yeah, if they would have ran Bernie Sanders, because y'all still have this fever dream about Bernie Sanders, but if they would have ran Bernie Sanders one, I don't know. Because have we ever had somebody run in 107 days to try to become president? No, it truly was unprecedented, It was. So her circumstance, I don't compare that to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton actually ran and then ran when Barack Obama did in 2008 and then lost to him. And then she ran again in 2016. Now, Kamala Harris, she ran in 2000, for the 2020, but she dropped out in 2019 in December. So she dropped out even way before the primary. So she didn't even go through the primary to actually lose because she didn't get enough funding. So she dropped out early. And then eventually, as we know, she became the VP. So I wouldn't even count that as okay, well, she lost that primary. She actually dropped out way beforehand, but she was still on the ballot, right? And then we move into 2024. It was kind of all right, Joe Biden dropped out, which I think also what played into why the Democrats lost the election was that public humiliation ritual that they did trying to get rid of Joe Biden. That should have been private. Do you think that the Republicans like Trump? No, I don't think they like him, but they go, oh, well, we kind of need to use him to get what we want. They think more strategic. Why did we have a public humiliation, a bashing session of Joe Biden? Should Joe Biden have dropped out? Oh, hell yeah. Listen, I'm in full agreement to that. But doing it publicly and having all the politicians and then George Clooney and then come to find out George Clooney might have dementia. Oh, man, Democrats will always eat their own. I'll tell you. So again, I don't know if Kamala Harris is the right candidate for 2028. Obviously, she's kind of setting up herself for 2028. We already kind of see it working in motion. I would be surprised if she didn't run in 2028. But again, let her run. Because then she'll be able to prove, okay, y'all said I couldn't win a primary. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. This is her time to prove herself. And if she doesn't, then she doesn't deserve to be the candidate. But let everybody run who wants to run. In 2020, they had about 30 bajillion different candidates running on the Democratic ticket, and then Joe Biden ended up winning, and Joe Biden won the presidency. It can happen again where it's a whole bunch of people running. It just doesn't need to be like, okay, we need to choose now. Like, damn, we haven't even reached the midterms yet. At least let's get to the midterms before we decide who's going to run. But y'all, that's just my 2 cents. You know, like I said, I definitely think that Kamala should run again on her own. Let's see how she does. But everybody should run. It should be the best candidate. Don't matter what the gender, sexual orientation, race, nothing. That's it. All right, you guys, let me know what you think in the chat. I'll definitely like to hear from other women, as well as, you know, just anybody in general. Like, who do you think should run for president? Like, let me know. I love y'all. Be safe. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We out of here, y'all. Deuces, everybody. But we out. And of course, whenever I say out, the button never works and we still here. Yeah.